Hey everybody, welcome back to Franchise Player, and today I have a pretty interesting video coming up. I recently picked up this PlayStation 4 Slim for 85 bucks, and I wanted to talk about, how I got this PS4, why I bought it, and ultimately why I think the PS4 in general is the best budget gaming option still available. I think the PS4 is an absolute steal for the value. If you think about it, 85 bucks for this console and what I got with it is basically what the price of new games are going to be on the Switch 2 and the Xbox. So if you're wanting to game on a budget, I think the PS4 is still an incredible option. So let's get right into how I got this, why I got it, and reasons why I think the PS4 is still pretty awesome. So a couple weeks back, my dad hit me up and he was like, hey, my PS4 finally bit the dust. And he was using the PS4 that I had originally got back in like 2015. So I was like, hey, no worries. I'll look on OfferUp and try to pick you a new PS4 up. So I ended up finding this one here on OfferUp. It was listed at 110 and I ended up offering the dude 85 bucks and he was cool with that. Pulled up to me and, we did the deal and it worked. And I was like, hey, 85 bucks, not bad. Give this to my dad, because he's not the kind of guy who needs the newest games and the newest consoles. He's still totally fine with a PS4 and doesn't really see a need for a PS5. So I thought for 85 bucks, this was a pretty sweet deal. And for being an $85 bundle, this actually came with a few games. It came with UFC 4. I haven't played the UFC games since I think the first one that was on PS4, and then the Undisputed games back in the day. Those were pretty cool. GTA 5, I think pretty much everyone who wants GTA 5 definitely has it by now. Obviously, this is a pretty common game. And then also Little Big Planet 3, which I think might also be on PS3, but 3 games, the console. And it also came with 2 controllers, which I thought was pretty cool because the DualShock 4, in my opinion, is a great controller, but at the age of the PS4 now, a lot of retailers are actually not carrying any new DualShock 4s. If you look online, the only DualShock 4 that I can find brand new or even in stores nowadays is just the plain, generic black one. So pretty cool that it came with both these. After picking all of this up for 85 bucks, I was like, dude, the PS4 is a budget beast and it's insane how cheap some games are. I went to a Half Price Books not too far from my place, and I found a Dragon Quest game here, Dragon Quest 11 for $3 at Half Price Books. Also found a copy of Horizon Zero Dawn for $3. I know this is a fairly common game, but $3 for a PS4 game is pretty hard to turn down. And they also had a copy of Killzone Shadowfall for $3. So I think this Half Price Books is really trying to clear out some of their older PS4 games. I would love to see another Killzone game, and kind of a shame that, we haven't seen one since. I mean, 2013, right, for Shadowfall. And then Knack. Knack gets, I think, a decent amount of hate for what it is. I'm oddly kind of nostalgic for Knack these days since it was an early PS4 title. And then also there was this game here that I wasn't too familiar with called Road Rage. And this looked like some kind of like, almost B-level game or double A level game. But I don't know. I thought it looked kind of cool. And, for $3, like, hey, might as well go for it. I don't know of many other consoles at all where you can get a console for that cheap that comes with some games and some controllers and also get games for $3 a piece. I mean, with where the gaming industry is currently headed and you're seeing $80 titles, $70 titles, it's pretty hard to turn down a $3 game for a system that's last gen but still semi-modern in my opinion. Now let's get into the real meat and potatoes of why I think the PS4 is the ultimate budget console. So other than those super cheap games, the library of the PS4 is incredible. The PS4 luckily had no shortage of amazing exclusives, and we're starting off with, in my opinion, what I think is the best looking game available on the console, and that is The Last of Us Part 2. This game is like sub 20 bucks, totally worth picking up if you've never explored the series. We have Ghost of Tsushima. This game has an amazing art style. Love the way this game looks. I think the story drags on a bit too long at the end, to be honest, but totally worth your time if you've never played it. A few other titles I wanted to mention. The Order 1886. I know this game got, a little bit of hate when it came out just for it being a shorter game, but I think the game still looks amazing. We have Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. Obviously, with this being a PlayStation console, you're going to have some Uncharted games, so if Uncharted's your cup of tea, you're good to go. And then Death Stranding, which is also a cheap game. So the best part about all these amazing, exclusives or well-known games is they're all dirt cheap. Like most of these you can easily get for 15 bucks or under, which I think is a huge reason the PS4 is a budget beast. One huge reason that I already kind of touched on a bit earlier on why I think the PS4 is such a great budget setup is this bundle was the price of basically one brand new game nowadays with tax. I mean, 85 bucks, 3 games, 2 controllers and a console. That's pretty hard to beat considering most, brand new Xbox games after their price increase update and then Switch 2 games are going to be, $80 a piece. Gamers on a budget or just people in general in a budget, I think the PS4 is pretty attractive for the price point that you can get into it if you're looking to play at least some semi-modern games or explore some old titles that you might have missed out on in the, peak of the PS4 era. I know a lot of people are wanting to put this generation of consoles behind them finally, right? The PS4 has been out for a very long time, and what's pretty crazy, it's actually gotten some, fairly recent releases. AAA wise, I mean, you had Black Ops 6. Mind you, I haven't played a Call of Duty really since Black Ops 3, so no idea how it runs on PS4, but it's there if you want the new Call of Duty. Some more niche stuff. You have, the Capcom Fighting Collection 2, which I think is a really cool release on PS4 to have. You also have the Lunar Remastered Collection. That's definitely a lot more niche and wasn't some huge physical release, but, nonetheless, super dope to have on PS4. And then another one that was actually a fairly recent release was Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. So if you're a fighting game fan, definitely in good hands if you're still on PS4. So pretty interesting to see, some fairly recent releases still come to the PS4. Obviously, those are going to continue to dwindle over the next year or so, but I think for the time being and, at least the foreseeable, maybe next 2 or 3 years, you'll definitely continue to get some indie titles and maybe some more obscure Japanese games. So yeah, pretty cool that the PS4 is actually getting some physical games here and there. An interesting thing about the PS4 too, especially after, picking one of these up and, exploring all the low cost games and just kind of the generation as a whole again is a lot of these games have aged super well and don't really feel dated in my opinion. I mean, a lot of these games, like I'll even use Killzone Shadowfall. Mind you, that's a game from, 2013, but still looks great for the age. The Last of Us Part 2, a lot of these games have aged so well. And I think we're almost starting to see diminishing returns in terms of graphics. Like a lot of PS5 games don't look that much better in my opinion. Yeah, sure, with the SSD of a PS5, you can load in and out of games way quicker. You can also put an SSD in your PS4. Definitely not going to be that same speed as a PS5, but it will definitely help the PS4 feel a little quicker and maybe a little more modern than it does overall. One thing to keep in mind too with PS4, if this is your cup of tea, is live service games like Warzone and Fortnite are still going strong on the PS4 and Xbox One actually. So that's another reason why I think these consoles are kind of still trekking along and don't feel super dated because they have, pretty modern games that are still being supported that you can still play. Along with that, obviously streaming apps like, Netflix, Hulu, stuff like that is still active on the platform as well. I think even Netflix is still active on PS3, which is ridiculous to think about how old the PS3 is and that Netflix still works on there. But yeah, live service games, streaming services still work on the console. So I think the PS4 is going to be, sticking around for quite some time, even if the releases continue to fall off, each year. Lastly, I wanted to talk about who I think the PS4 is still for, today. So well over 10 days past the launch of the PS4 came out back in 2013. And I think there's, a few different user bases that make sense for the PS4. One being patient gamers, people that really aren't rushing to get into, the most modern, current gen console now. I mean, because the PS5's been out, 5 years almost. So it's current gen, right? But, people who aren't wanting to make that next jump and they're totally cool with playing their games, diving into their backlog and exploring some games that they may have missed, in this generation of games. Another one, and this kind of goes hand in hand with patient gamers, but frugal gamers, people who are wanting to go out there, pick up some games on a budget. The PS4 is, really one of the only consoles I can think of off the top of my head that you can go out there with 20 bucks, 40 bucks, 50 bucks maybe, and pick up a stack of quality games and, not break the bank. I mean, a lot of people nowadays are, especially with the inflation we're dealing with, don't have a ton of extra cash to drop on games. So I think the PS4 is an incredible budget option. So if you're wanting something, you can head out there, not have to sell your kidney like you're wanting to pick up some GameCube games with how expensive stuff like that is, or even modern games. I think the PS4 is a fantastic option.